On January 9th, 2013, a man discovered something disturbing about his Subway sandwich, so he posted it to social media. Earlier that day, Matt Corby, a sandwich enthusiast, ordered a supposed 12-inch sub from a Subway in Perth, Australia. By the time he arrived at the restaurant, Matt was starving. He'd been looking forward to this moment all day. He hopped in line, ordered his sandwich his way, and paid for his order. Now, the only thing left was to eat and enjoy his foot-long sub. But before taking a bite, Matt said to himself, "You know what? Let's see if this thing really is a foot long." So he took a tape measure and laid it on top of his sandwich. To his surprise and horror, it was just 11 inches, a far cry from the advertised 12-inch, $5 foot long. Upset and confused, Matt posted the photo to Subway Australia's Facebook page with the simple message, "Subway, please respond," and the image quickly got over 100,000 likes. But Matt didn't receive the response he was hoping for. When Subway Australia saw the post, they responded in the worst possible way. It's like they wanted backlash. Here's what they said. With regards to the size of the bread and calling it a footlong, Subway footlong is a registered trademark as a descriptive name for the sub sold in Subway restaurants, not intended to be a measurement of length. This reply has since been deleted. However, the damage was already done. Subway made it clear that if you think a Subway footlong should be a foot, that's absurd. You should know it's just a silly name for measurement and branding purposes. I just hope Matt ended up getting the rest of his sandwich. But in all seriousness, this scandal is nothing compared to the long list of controversies Subway's found themselves in over the years. Since 2016, Subway's sales have done nothing but decline, resulting in store closings, angry franchisees, and unsatisfied customers. And that's only scratching the surface. Today, we're going to explore the history of Subway, how it went from an idea to the second largest restaurant chain in the world, and why so many people dislike them for so many reasons. I have a question for you. Have you ever heard of Pete's Super Submarines? Neither have I. But I was surprised to learn that in 1965, a young entrepreneur named Fred DeLuca opened a sandwich shop with that name. The shop that would eventually evolve into the Subway franchise you know and love, or possibly hate today. Boasting nearly 37,000 locations as of June 2021, Subway is the second largest fast food chain in the world. In any given state, there's at least 50 Subway locations, and they operate in 100 plus countries worldwide. And in just the last year, Subway sold $9.4 billion worth of sandwiches. But despite their high revenue and insane number of locations, Subway has some glaring issues. It's so bad people go out of their way to make parody videos and analysis videos about why they're going to fail. It wasn't always like this though. When Subway started out, business was great. It almost sounds wild, but people used to really love Subway. At one point, people championed them as the healthy alternative in the world of fast food. However, the most interesting fact about Subway concerns their founder, Fred DeLuca. And that is, Fred never wanted to own a sandwich shop, let alone be a businessman. He wanted to be a doctor, not a sandwich artist. But the problem was, he had zero money to pay for his college tuition. Still, that didn't stop him, not for 1 second. The DeLuca family had a friend named Dr. Peter Buck, who was a nuclear physicist. Not quite what Fred wanted to be, but still a doctor nonetheless. So Fred went to Dr. Peter for advice on how to obtain a doctorate and how to raise money for college. He was secretly hoping he'd offer to pay for his entire tuition since he was pretty well off. But Dr. Peter didn't offer to pay for Fred's college. He offered something much different. Dr. Peter said, "Fred, I will give you $1,000 right now, but I don't want you to spend a single penny of it on college. Together, we'll open up a sandwich shop and use the profits to pay for your education. What do you say?" Dr. Peter's response not only surprised Fred, it shocked him. He almost thought it was a joke. Although it wasn't what he was expecting, Fred agreed, shook Dr. Peter's hand, and they were officially in business. From there, they got to work building the first ever Subway. During their first few years of business, they went by Pete's Super Submarines, before changing it to Pete's Subs, and then Pete's Subway, and finally, just Subway by the 1970s. The first ever Subway location opened in 1965 on Main Street in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Though it was small and modest, it laid the foundation for all future Subways to come. But Fred and Dr. Peter severely underestimated just how hard running a sandwich shop could be. By the end of their first year in business, things were looking grim, to the point where they almost reconsidered the entire business. After their first year as business partners, the duo hadn't made a profit. To make matters worse, they had less than $25 left out of the $1,000 they started with, and business wasn't getting any better. However, for some reason, this didn't discourage them, and instead of closing up shop for good, they defied all logic and opened up another restaurant nearby. They felt even more confident about this new one. This time around, they were gonna hit it big. They knew it. But this restaurant did even worse, in every way possible. They were losing money, losing time, and not helping Fred fund his college tuition. So in a last-ditch effort to make this thing work, they once again went against all logic and opened up a third store, which was in every way an absurd business move. But for some reason, this time was different. Instead of losing money, they made profits over $6,000 in their first full year of running. The funniest part is, once they experienced this success, Fred decided he no longer cared about the medical industry and wanted to pursue a career in the food industry. So the following year, in 1966, Fred and Dr. Peter formed a holding company called Doctors Associates Incorporated to oversee the running of their shops. Fred and Dr. Peter had a goal. By 1974, they'd opened 30 Subway restaurants in the state of Connecticut. They didn't have a reason for this number, it just sounded good to them. However, once 1974 rolled around, Fred and Dr. Peter only had 16 stores in Connecticut, barely half their goal. Upset by this massive failure, Fred made it his mission to find out why. Why couldn't they open new stores in a timely manner? And why were they falling so far behind? After investigating, Fred realized a huge issue. Maintaining the same quality from store to store was almost impossible, at least the way they currently ran things. What were other companies doing that they weren't? And that's when a light bulb went off in his head. The light bulb which made Subway what it is today. And that is the magic of franchising. A word I'm sure you've heard before, but to be honest, for most of my life, I wasn't sure what franchise even meant. In simplest terms, a franchise or franchising is a method of distributing products or services. Basically, the franchisor, which would in this case be Subway, establishes the brand's trademark and a business system. Then, the franchisee pays a royalty and usually an initial fee for the right to do business under the franchisor's name and system. So for people who want to open a business but don't want to start a whole new company, becoming a franchisee is the perfect solution. Once Fred realized franchising was the answer to quick expansion, he convinced his longtime friend Brian Dixon to open the first Subway franchise. He opened it in Wallingford, Connecticut in 1974. In that same year, Subway was able to open another 14 restaurants using the franchise business model. Now, Subway had 30 restaurants under their belt and a proven system to expand operations quickly and efficiently. But in order to make their expansion worthwhile, they had to make sure the food quality was the same from restaurant to restaurant. Fred created the principles which all the Subway restaurants needed to follow. High quality, fresh food, and customer satisfaction were the pillars which the franchisees needed to keep up. They also made it a rule that all bread used for sandwiches must be baked in the store itself. This helped increase Subway's reputation and demand as the quality of the product increased. By 1978, Subway opened their 100th store. It was at this point they pulled out all the stops and began to focus on worldwide sandwich domination. In 1984, Subway opened their first international location in the island of Bahrain, and by 1987, Subway had opened their 1,000th store. But this is nothing compared to what's to come. In the year 1998, Subway celebrated by opening its 10,000th store. They were now unstoppable and could become as big as they wanted. They started expanding to almost every country in the world, including Norway, Pakistan, Hong Kong, and Sweden. In 2000, they kicked off a marketing campaign that would impact the sales of Subway products everywhere in the world. In this campaign, a 22-year-old man named Jared Fogle claimed he had lost over 240 pounds eating only Subway sandwiches. This boosted Subway's reputation as the healthy place to get fast food. As America was struggling with high obesity levels due to fast food, Subway became the best option for people to choose. In 2002, Subway passed up McDonald's and became the franchise with the highest number of restaurants. But as you know, this wouldn't last. Subway finished out the 2000s strong. However, once the 2010s rolled around, they began having problems. To put it lightly, the 2010s have not been kind to Subway. Or maybe Subway's been unkind to the 2010s. Let's take a look and see what happened. On September 14th, 2015, just weeks after celebrating the 50th anniversary of the franchise, Subway founder Fred DeLuca passed away after a long battle with leukemia. This event was the catalyst for Subway's massive decline. And that's not to say they had a perfect history before this. There was that whole foot-long issue we talked about in the beginning of the video, among other small issues like that, but nothing compared to what would happen after Fred's passing. So why did Subway begin having problems after Fred passed? It all starts with his sister, Suzanne Greco. Suzanne loved her brother and his business. She even worked at Subway for a short time as a teenager, so she stepped in right away, dropping everything to become the new CEO of Subway. At first, everyone was thankful for Suzanne's passion and dedication toward the business, but soon after she started, it became clear she was underqualified for the job and actually pretty bad at it, to the point where franchisees started hating her and blamed her for store closings and a lack of profitability. Franchisees complained about how Greco never offered them the necessary support to be successful as a Subway franchisee, and also never implemented any plan to promote growth within the company.
We own a business. This was like a big deal to me, and I just want.
In total, Suzanne lasted 3 years, but some say she should have retired long before that. During her time as CEO, Subway experienced record store closures, each year closing down more stores than the last. In 2016, Subway closed 350 plus stores. In 2017, 800 plus stores. And in 2018, her last year, they closed over 1,000 stores. And with a decline in locations came a decline in revenue. But don't worry, I'm not blaming all of Subway's problems on Suzanne. She's only a small piece of the overall puzzle. You know how earlier I mentioned a man named Jared Fogle, the guy who lost over 240 pounds eating Subway? In 2015, the same year Suzanne Greco stepped in as CEO, something awful came out about Jared Fogle. Opposite of his inspiring and motivating persona, the real-life Jared Fogle led a dark life. Jared had some dark interests, which led him to doing some awful stuff. Stuff so bad that if I mentioned it by name, YouTube probably wouldn't recommend this video to people. But let's just say they found some stuff on his computer. Stuff that was so bad and so gross, he faced up to 50 years in prison. That is, if he went to trial. But Fogle didn't want to take his chances. So he took a plea deal, 15 years and 8 months in Jefferson County Federal Prison. And that's where he sits to this day. Subway, of course, cut all ties with Fogle after everything came out, but that did little for their reputation. No matter how hard they try, Jared's story will always be part of Subway's history, whether they like it or not. It's impossible to say just how much the Jared stuff impacted Subway as a brand, but it's safe to say this ushered in a new era for Subway, the post-Jared era, an era of store closings, low revenue, disinterested customers, the beginning of the end. In 2017, Subway's reputation took another major hit. CBC reported that Subway chicken isn't really chicken, or at least only some of it is. According to CBC, Subway's chicken breast is 53.6% chicken DNA, and the chicken strips are just 42.8% chicken DNA. CBC concluded the majority of the remaining DNA was soy. At this, people were furious, upset, and outraged. And understandably so. Most people don't like eating fake chicken. But Subway wasn't having it, so they let CBC have it. They filed a $210 million lawsuit against CBC, saying, "We don't know how they produced such unreliable and factually incorrect data. This report is wrong and must be corrected." However, in late 2019, the Ontario Superior Court dismissed the case, ruling that CBC's program was an example of investigative journalism and was protected under an anti-SLAPP statute that encourages individuals to express themselves on matters of public interest without the fear that they'll be sued if they speak out. With Subway claiming the data incorrect, followed by the lawsuit getting dropped, I'm not sure what to think about Subway chicken. How real is it? How fake is it? I don't know. I just don't want Subway to sue me. One of the worst aspects of why people hate Subway has to do with their slogan, "Eat fresh," because you know there's a problem when customers complain about Subway not being fresh enough. But it's another issue entirely when even the employees are raising concerns over freshness and vegetable quality. According to recent interviews, employees state that Subway's "Eat fresh" slogan is alarmingly misleading. One issue among many has to do with the lettuce. By the time it arrives at Subway, it's allegedly anywhere between 10 to 15 days old. Considering the fact that most franchisees get their permitted supply of vegetables once a week, that lettuce may be up to 22 days old by the time it goes on your sandwich. And that's only one example. According to one employee, all of the fresh ingredients, including other vegetables and chicken, arrive at restaurants pre-processed and laden with preservatives. I don't think that's most people's idea of fresh. On top of Subway not being fresh, it's also super expensive. It's not outrageous, but when you compare what you're paying to what you get as a product, the price seems ludicrous. Gone are the days of $5 footlongs, unless it's on a Tuesday and you buy a drink. And I get it, times change, inflation, all that. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Because when you no longer live up to your slogan or have a competitive price point, what's the point? Why would anyone ever go to Subway when you could go somewhere else for around the same price and a way tastier, fresher experience? Before I tell you about my favorite Subway controversy, I need to tell you about my most recent Subway experience and why I'm now making a proactive effort to avoid it. My experience sucked that bad. It had nothing to do with the workers or customer service. Everyone was doing their best and had a great attitude, despite the circumstances. But a great attitude only goes so far when every vegetable looks wilted and mealy. See, I'm one of those gross people who gets every vegetable available. So that's what I asked for when I ordered, and it was a huge mistake. When I got home and tore into my sandwich, I experienced one of the mushiest, stalest punishments of my entire life. I can't say for sure, but I think the bread was from the day before, or maybe week before. I have no idea. The sandwich was so bad, I choked down half of it before tossing it in the garbage where it belongs. Sorry if I got a little heated there. It's just tough to see a place I once loved go down the tubes. I was hoping my most recent trip would reignite my love for Subway and make me a frequent customer once again. But they pushed me away so hard, I'm still trying to understand how it's so bad. So this last controversy happened in 2014, predating all the Suzanne Greco and Jared Fogle stuff. Serving is one of their first giant controversies. In 2014, a petition created by blogger/activist Vani Hara, aka Food Babe, urged the chain to remove azad carbonamide, a substance also found in yoga mats, from its bread. Just days and quite a bit of public backlash later, Subway agreed to phase out the ingredient. But I think what upset a lot of customers is that they felt like they shouldn't even have to ask Subway to remove ingredients like that. It should just be a part of their Eat Fresh slogan. I really like this controversy because it's one of those things you read online and think this has to be fake. But then you look it up and realize you may have eaten a couple yoga mats over the years. When it comes down to it, I don't hate Subway. Unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated than that. Seeing Subway in this sad state is like seeing a friend or family member suffering from some awful condition. It's like you want to help, but you know that they need help far beyond what you can offer, and to even spend time trying will only hurt the both of you. That's how I feel about Subway. I wish they weren't afraid of changing things up, experimenting, getting a little wacky, because the only thing that's really changed since I started going there is the logo. Other than that, a couple one-off menu items that either didn't last or completely bombed. Otherwise, it's the same. Same layout, same food, same ingredients, and hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. but it is. It's broken and in need of serious repair. If Subway doesn't get the help it needs, and fast, Subway won't be around for much longer. I just don't see a place for them in the market unless they make major improvements and change up their advertising. But what do you think? Do you love Subway? Hate Subway? Do you like their chicken? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, all I ask is that you bankrupt the like button on your way out, and subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a future upload. Thanks again. I'll see you soon.